Every so often, humanity has the pleasure of seeing something so mind-blowing that the universe brings to us. Today, we see another of those things, the release of SROS 16. What is different, you ask? The CLI looks the same. Well, I have fooled you. The CLI has been completely reworked. As you can see, familiarity, CPM, active CPM is listed, the host name. Now we also have the username and the context we're in. This is called the model-driven CLI. We also have the classic CLI, so we can run commands here as you would have before. We can't configure here because I've told the router to use the model-driven CLI engine. So Nokia have reworked the CLI, so we have the classic stuff that we're used to in terms of operations, potentially configuration depending on how you want to use it, and also a CLI that is more intuitive for machine-to-machine communication or human interaction with the router, but it's based on models. So if we want to use Yang models to configure the router or OpenConfig, we can talk to the router over netconf, gRPC, and push templates to the device that potentially are going to be standard across all the vendors we use in our network. In this video, we're going to use the model-driven CLI in order to configure our box. We have to use a configuration candidate in order to do this. This is not new to SROS. We've had this since potentially release 13, I think. But the difference being is we have to configure in this manner now when we're using the MD CLI. So at the moment in 16.0.1 we have the option of doing either an exclusive lock or a global lock. But first we need to configure some elements that will allow us to use the MD CLI. So within the config system management interface we have a number of CLI and configuration parameters. The CLI we're going to use is MD CLI. We can alter our autosave, our environmental variables here if we wish. We can do the same for the classic CLI. Our configuration mode is what we're looking for here, so we're going to set the configuration mode to mixed, or we can set it to model driven or classic, and we can save that. So now if we go back to our MD CLI, we're able to configure the device now. So we go into edit config, we go with global, and let's chase the host name first off. Configure system name, router 1, and we'll just say it's R16.1. So you see it hasn't actually changed, but we have made a change to the candidate configuration. So the prompt hasn't changed because we haven't actually pushed this to the running configuration of the device. So we can use the validate keyword, which is going to tell us if we commit this, whether there will be any syntax errors, which is very useful if you want to write a config file or you want to push something through a template and you want to be able to be sure that what you push at say 2 a.m. someone in the NOC might do it. You may have a cron job push something, whatever it happens to be. You want to make sure that it's not going to fail. So first we'll commit that. Now we can see the host name's changed straight away. The star has disappeared. Everything's great. If I want to go and configure the system interface, notice that the syntax is exactly the same between the original classic CLI and the model-driven CLI. And if I do info, right, so this is what we see. Nothing we're not familiar with. So you can see here now we're in the configuration context. We're at the configure hierarchy. In previous versions of code, let's just go back and do an info. We can't actually see the info for the entire config. We have to do admin display. That's fine. Here we can actually do info. And you'll see the configuration is familiar if you run Juniper boxes. The idea here is that everything can be based on the model. We can pull information off the box, push information to the box using models. So now let's configure our system interface. So instead of just going address, I don't have that option, which we would over here. I have to say the address family, so I've got IPv4, IPv6. I want to say primary, so this is going to be my primary address. Nothing here. We're going to say address 192.1.2.1. Now, normally I would say /32. I can't actually do that here either. I have to use the prefix length. And just for argument's sake, I'm going to set a prefix length to 24. Now, we can't do this. If we try and do this on our release 14 device, which this guy is, it's going to give us an error saying that it has to be a /32 for a v4 or a /128 for a v6 address. Over here we'll get the same thing, but we can use our validate command, and it gives us a similar error, but it means the same thing. So if we look at info now, we have a prefix length. We need to get rid of that. We can't actually do a no. So what we're actually going to be doing across the commands on routers, services, everything I've seen so far, is we're going to use a delete. So we say delete prefix length, info, now it's gone, and we can set our prefix length to 32. Now if I validate, it should pass. I can do commit confirmed 1. We're going to look at 1 minute countdowns, and it'll roll back automatically, or I can commit. So now, can I do a show command? I cannot, because I'm in the config context. If I want to run show commands, I can do show router interface system with my // Now it doesn't tab out for us, but what it will do is it'll switch to the classic CLI, execute the command, print out the information, and then switch back to the MD CLI. Alternatively, I can go top, so from here we want to see what we've done to the system interface. So usually we'd go show router interface system. We can't tab it out. If we try and type system, it doesn't work. That will work obviously on the classic CLI over here. But what we need to do now is show router interface, IP address, IP interface name, system. And that gives us the same information. Now there's a few different keywords we can use here. We can specify a family, IPv4. We can specify v6. I haven't actually configured any v6. We can see a summary of interfaces and so on. We can also do show router interface system, and it'll switch us back to the classic CLI mode. So config router interface system, IPv4 and primary. Now if I want to move back to the system interface, old school, I'd have to go back. Now I can just go back to. I see my configuration. If I want to go to root, I use top. If I want to leave config mode, exit, quit config.